What kind of brother gets kicked out of his own sister's engagement party for ruining the vibe, and then, 12 hours later, holds her whole future in 4 quiet words? At the party, Riya pointed at me in front of everyone and told me to leave, while her fiancé smirked like I was some embarrassing extra. The next morning, she called, begging for the trust login she thought she controlled, and that was the moment I stopped being just the orphan brother who raised her and became the man who calmly turned her big day into a nightmare. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? I arrived at the hotel ballroom 40 minutes before the engagement party started. The staff was still setting up centerpieces and adjusting lighting, and I found myself holding the door for a young woman carrying 3 boxes of champagne flutes. She thanked me without making eye contact, assuming I worked there. I was wearing my best suit, a gray off-the-rack number I bought 5 years ago for job interviews, so I understood the confusion. Riya swept past me 20 minutes later in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was laughing with Noah's mother, both of them glowing under the chandeliers, and she did not see me standing near the gift table. I set down the envelope I brought, a modest check from my own savings, not the trust, and stepped back into the shadows near the bar. The room filled quickly. Riya's friends were the kind of people who took photos of everything, holding their phones at arm's length and tilting their heads just right. Noah worked the crowd like a politician, shaking hands and clapping shoulders. His startup friends wore expensive casual clothes that somehow looked more formal than my suit, and they talked in that half-joking way that made every sentence sound like an inside reference. I stayed quiet near the back, nursing a glass of water and watching my sister shine. Someone asked her about growing up, and she laughed and said something about basically raising myself and learning independence early. The words landed like a small fist in my chest, but I kept my face neutral. The guests around her nodded sympathetically, and Noah squeezed her hand. His friends drifted toward me eventually. One of them, a tall guy with perfectly styled hair, asked if I was with the catering company or something. When I explained I was the bride's brother, his expression shifted to polite confusion. Another asked what I did for work, and when I said I volunteered at a nonprofit helping families with financial planning, he nodded slowly and said, "That's really noble, man." The word noble hung in the air like an insult wrapped in kindness. Noah joined the circle and introduced me as Riya's older brother, the one who never left town. Everyone smiled, but the subtext was clear. I was the person who stayed behind while everyone else moved forward. He made a joke about me being too serious with numbers, and the group laughed politely. I forced a small smile and took another sip of water. The photographer gathered people for a group shot near the main table. Riya stood in the center with Noah, surrounded by both families and close friends. I moved toward the edge of the frame, trying to stay out of the way, but Riya's eyes found me. Her smile faltered for just a second, and then she raised her hand and pointed. "Lennon, you're kind of ruining the vibe right now," she said, loud enough that several people turned to look. "Could you maybe step out for a bit?" The room went silent. Noah's smirk was small but unmistakable. His mother looked at me with something like pity. Someone in the crowd laughed nervously, trying to break the tension, and the sound echoed in my ears like broken glass. I nodded slowly, keeping my face calm. "Sure. Congratulations, Riya." I walked toward the exit with my head up and my hands steady. Behind me, the photographer said something cheerful about getting back to the fun part, and the guests' laughter resumed. I pushed through the side door into the quiet corridor and stood there for a moment, listening to the muffled celebration on the other side of the wall. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a calendar reminder. Trust review, 9 a.m. tomorrow. The screen glowed in the dim hallway, and I stared at it for a long moment before silencing an incoming call from an unknown number. I stepped into the elevator, and watched the ballroom lights shrink as the doors closed. My apartment was 15 blocks away, small and neat, and nothing like the trendy loft Riya shared with Noah. I sat on my worn couch and looked at the framed photo on the side table, the two of us as kids, her gap-toothed smile pressed against my shoulder. She was 10 in that picture. I was 20. Our parents were gone after a Tuesday night in winter, a patch of ice, a guardrail, and suddenly we were on our own. I remember sitting in the social worker's office, watching Riya cry into a borrowed coat, and thinking that if I didn't step up, the system would split us apart. Foster homes were already full. We had no close relatives willing to take both of us. I was 19, working part-time at a warehouse and going to community college at night. I left school 2 weeks after the service and picked up a second job at a grocery store. For 3 years, I worked 50-hour weeks, slept on a futon in our one-bedroom apartment, and made sure Riya had everything: school supplies, warm clothes, birthday cakes, and someone who showed up at every parent-teacher conference. When I turned 22, I filed the paperwork to become her legal guardian. The social worker, a tired woman named Mira, asked me 3 times if I understood what I was giving up. I said yes every time. Riya hugged me so hard that day I thought my ribs might crack. The insurance payout and settlement from the accident were not huge, but they were enough to matter. I met Eli Turner through a friend's recommendation, a lawyer who specialized in estate planning and did some pro bono work. He helped me set up a trust to protect the money until Riya finished school. The rules were simple: education expenses, reasonable housing costs, and basic support. Nothing extravagant. The goal was security, not luxury. I made myself trustee because I was the only one who could. Riya was 15 and still needed someone to sign permission slips. Eli explained that as trustee, I had full control over distributions, but that the money existed for her benefit. It was a responsibility, not a prize. Over the years, I kept living small so she could have more. She went to a good college. She studied abroad one summer. She never had to work during the semester if she did not want to. I stayed in my small apartment, kept my old car running, and told myself it was worth it every time she called excited about some new opportunity. But somewhere along the way, things shifted. Her friends started treating me like an embarrassing relative at Thanksgiving, someone you tolerate but do not introduce to your real social circle. Boyfriends came and went, and none of them seemed to understand why a 30-something guy was still involved in his sister's finances. Riya stopped saying I raised her and started calling me my older brother who never left town. At the nonprofit, I spent my days helping strangers untangle bad loans and rebuild their budgets. My clients respected my advice. They listened when I talked about setting boundaries with family members who treated money like a weapon. They thanked me for teaching them how to protect themselves. It was strange, being valued by people I barely knew, while my own sister looked at me like I was a burden she had outgrown. The night of the engagement party, I sat on my couch and scrolled through Riya's social media. Her latest post showed her and Noah on a rooftop bar, glasses of wine catching the sunset. The caption read, "Self-made and totally independent. So grateful for this journey." In the corner of one photo, barely visible, was the edge of a credit card I recognized, linked to the trust account. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. The first time I visited Riya's loft, I brought groceries. It was a Saturday morning, a few weeks before the engagement party, and she had texted asking if I could pick up some things on my way over. I said yes without thinking, the way I always did. The building had a doorman and an elevator with mirrors on 3 sides. Her place was on the 8th floor, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. The furniture looked like it came from a catalog for people who say curated, without irony. There were framed travel photos on the walls: Barcelona, Tokyo, Iceland, and a bar cart stocked with bottles I could not pronounce. Noah answered the door in joggers and a fitted t-shirt, barefoot and relaxed. He thanked me for the groceries and set them on the marble counter without unpacking them. Riya was on the couch with her laptop, video chatting with a friend about wedding venues. I stood in the kitchen, looking around, doing quiet math in my head. The rent alone was probably twice what the trust was supposed to cover for housing. The furniture, the art, the electronics. None of it matched her official income from her job at a marketing firm. Noah poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter. So, Lennon, Riya and I have been talking about simplifying some things financially. You know, getting everything under one roof. I nodded, waiting. We think it might be time to move the trust over to a professional manager, someone neutral. That way, Riya does not have to feel like she's asking her brother for permission every time she needs something. He said it casually, like he was suggesting we switch to a different phone plan. Riya glanced over from the couch, her expression carefully blank. She's almost 30, Noah continued. It's kind of weird that she still has to go through you for her own money, you know? Makes her feel like a kid. I kept my voice level. The trust is not just her money. It's what our parents left for both of us, structured to make sure it lasts. I'm the trustee because that's what the documents say. Right, but you could change that. Noah's smile did not reach his eyes. You want what's best for her, right? Riya closed her laptop and came over. Lennon, I love you, but this whole setup makes me feel controlled, like I can't make my own decisions. It's holding me back. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger wearing my sister's face. I'll think about it. That's all we're asking, Noah said, clapping me on the shoulder like we were teammates. I left 10 minutes later and drove straight to a cafe near the courthouse. I texted Eli and asked if he had time for coffee. He said yes. We sat in a corner booth, away from the lunch crowd. Eli was in his late 40s, graying at the temples, with the kind of calm that comes from spending decades watching people make terrible decisions with money. They want me to hand over the trust, I said quietly. Eli stirred his coffee. Do you want to? No. Then don't. It's more complicated than that. Is it? Eli set down his spoon. You're the trustee. You have a fiduciary duty to manage the trust according to its terms. If you think handing over control would violate that duty, then you have every right to refuse. I stared at my untouched coffee. She's going to hate me. Maybe, but hate's better than regret. He leaned back. You did not create this situation, Lennon. You just have to decide whether you're going to let them bully you into giving up the only leverage you have. I thought about that word. Leverage, all the way home. That night, I checked my email and found a string of notifications from the trust's bank account. Transfers to a wedding planner, payments to a catering company, a 5-figure withdrawal labeled Business Consulting NC Ventures, Noah's startup. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a thin folder labeled Braskin Family Trust, and set it on the desk. I did not open it. Not yet. But I rested my hand on it for a long moment, feeling the weight of all the choices I had made to protect her, and all the ways she had chosen to see me as the enemy. I spent the next 2 weeks moving through my life like a man collecting evidence for a trial no one else knew was coming. During the day, I went to the nonprofit and helped people escape bad financial situations. At night, I sat at my desk and built my own case. The trust documents were straightforward. Eli and I had written them carefully when Riya was still a teenager. The language was clear: education expenses, reasonable housing, basic living costs, and emergency support. Nothing about funding destination weddings or propping up failing startups. As trustee, I had full discretion over distributions, and any major changes required formal amendments filed with the court. I printed everything: bank statements going back 2 years, withdrawal records, the original trust deed with its highlighted sections about approved uses. I organized them by date in a 3-ring binder and kept it in my locked desk drawer. One afternoon, I took a long lunch and walked to the bank where the trust account was held. I waited in line like any other customer, and when I reached the counter, I asked for printed summaries of recent activity and a written confirmation of my status as trustee. The teller processed my request without questions and handed me a sealed envelope. Back at the nonprofit, I helped a woman in her 50s untangle a joint account her son had been draining for months. She kept apologizing for bothering me with family drama, and I told her it was not drama, it was theft. By the end of our session, she had a plan to separate her finances and set clear boundaries. Never give control to someone who doesn't respect you, I said as she left. She thanked me, and I sat there for a minute after she was gone, hearing my own advice echo back. That weekend, I met Mira at the park by the river. She was the social worker who had helped us years ago, and we stayed in touch. She was older now, her hair mostly gray, but her eyes were still sharp. "You look tired," she said, handing me a coffee from the cart near the path. I told her about the engagement party, about being asked to leave, about Noah's push to take over the trust. Mira listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she sighed. "Lennon, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear." "Go ahead." "You can't protect her from herself anymore. She's not a kid. She's a grown woman making her own choices, and some of those choices are going to hurt you." She paused. "The question is whether you're going to keep letting her use you as a safety net while she pretends you don't exist." I stared at the river. A jogger passed us, headphones in, oblivious. "I don't want to hurt her." "Then don't. But you also don't have to keep funding a life that erases you." That night, I did more digging. Noah's startup had a website full of buzzwords and stock photos, but a quick search of public business records showed unpaid vendor complaints and a registered agent address that didn't match the office location listed online. His LinkedIn profile was polished, but the comments section on industry articles told a different story. Delayed payments, broken promises, angry former partners. I started a spreadsheet. Dates, amounts, descriptions, every withdrawal that didn't fit the trust's purpose, every expense that looked more like lifestyle than necessity. I didn't write down what I planned to do with it. I just kept building the list, one line at a time. Late one night, Eli called. We spoke carefully, the way people do when they know conversations can become evidence. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "I'm sure I can't keep going the way things are." "Then we need to make sure everything's documented. Properly. Legally." "I know. I'm not talking about revenge, Lennon. I'm talking about protecting the trust's original intent." "I know," I said again. We hung up, and my phone buzzed immediately with a group text. Riya had sent out an invitation to a big family dinner at the same hotel where the engagement party had been held. The message was bright and cheerful, full of exclamation points talking about bringing everyone together before the big day. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing a single word: "I'll be there." Eli's office was on the third floor of an old building downtown, the kind with creaky wood floors and windows that rattled when trucks passed. I sat across from him at a desk covered in file folders and yellow legal pads, and we talked in the careful language of people preparing for something permanent. "The original trust document is solid," Eli said, tapping a highlighted paragraph. "You're named as sole trustee with full discretion over distributions. Riya is a beneficiary, not a co-trustee. That distinction matters." "What about the withdrawals?" "Documented, dated, categorized." He slid a printed summary across the desk. "Some are clearly within the trust's scope: education, rent, utilities. But these," he circled a section with red ink, "are problems. Wedding costs beyond reasonable limits, business investments, luxury travel not connected to education or employment." I stared at the numbers. "Can she challenge this?" "She can try, but you're not cutting her off. You're enforcing the trust's terms. That's your legal obligation as trustee. If anything, you've been too permissive." We spent the next hour going through options: formal notifications to vendors, letters clarifying the trust's scope and limits, Updated internal guidelines that I would file with the bank. Everything stamped, dated, and officially recorded. "When do you want this to go into effect?" Eli asked. "The day before the family dinner." He raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." He nodded and made a note. "I'll have everything ready." The courthouse was busier than I expected. I signed in at the clerk's office, waited in a hallway that smelled like old paper and floor wax, and met briefly with a mediator to file updated trust administration forms. The process was dry and bureaucratic, the kind of thing that happens in silence while someone stamps papers and hands you receipts. I walked out with a sealed envelope and a strange sense of finality. That night, I took down the old photos of Riya and me from my living room wall. The one from her high school graduation, the one from the day I officially became her guardian, the one from a camping trip we took when she was 16, both of us muddy and grinning. I placed them face down in a drawer and closed it gently. I was not angry. I was just done pretending this was still the relationship I had spent my 20s building. The family dinner was set for Thursday evening in the hotel's private dining room. Both families would be there: Noah's parents, a few aunts and uncles, some cousins who barely knew us. It was supposed to be a celebration, a chance for everyone to toast the happy couple before the wedding chaos ramped up. I arrived exactly on time, wearing the same gray suit. Riya hugged me at the door, all smiles, as if the engagement party humiliation had never happened. Noah shook my hand and made a joke about me, finally loosening up. The room was warm, full of laughter and clinking glasses. Noah's father dominated the conversation, talking about business strategies and market trends. His mother complimented Riya's dress and asked leading questions about the honeymoon plans. Halfway through dinner, Noah stood and clinked his glass. "I just want to say how grateful we are to have both families here. This is the start of something amazing, and we couldn't do it without all of your support." Applause. Smiles. Someone refilled the wine. Noah's father leaned forward. "I hear the financial side is almost sorted out. Once the trust situation gets resolved, you two will have real freedom to build something together." Riya glanced at me, her expression hopeful. "We're working on it." I said nothing. The bill came at the end of the night, and Noah reached for it with a grin. "Don't worry, the trust has this covered." No one corrected him. Riya looked at me expectantly. Noah's mother smiled. I pulled out my personal credit card and handed it to the server. "I've got it." The table went quiet for just a second, and then Noah laughed. "Always the responsible one, huh?" I smiled thinly and did not respond. Before I left, I stopped by the hotel's event coordinator's office. She was a brisk woman in her 50s, efficient and professional. We spoke briefly about an upcoming event, technically listed as a pre-wedding brunch, but using the same ballroom as the engagement party. "Everything's confirmed," she said, checking her tablet. "Payment arrangements updated as of this morning." I thanked her and shook her hand. That night, I laid my suit out on the bed, pressed and ready. I placed the closed trust folder on top of it, along with a printed copy of the updated vendor notifications. I set my alarm for 6 in the morning. The screen glowed in the dark, displaying the event name and start time. I did not sleep much, but I did not need to. I was ready. The hotel ballroom looked exactly like it had the night of the engagement party. Same chandeliers, same floral arrangements, same polished floor reflecting warm light. I arrived an hour early, while staff was still setting up the buffet tables. The event coordinator met me in a side hallway, tablet in hand. "Everything's processed," she said quietly. "The trust account is no longer on file for any charges related to this event or the wedding. We sent confirmation emails to the couple yesterday." "Did they respond?" "Not yet." I nodded. "Thank you." Guests started arriving around 10. The brunch was supposed to be a smaller, more intimate gathering, just close family and the wedding party. Riya wore a white sundress and moved through the room like she was already practicing for the wedding reception. Noah worked his usual charm, shaking hands and making everyone feel included in his vision of the future. I stood near the back with a cup of coffee, watching. Noah gave a short speech around 10:30, standing near the head table with Riya at his side. He talked about building something real and breaking free from old limitations. He made a joke about me being too serious with the numbers and got a small laugh from his friends. Riya smiled and squeezed his hand. After the speech, Riya found me near the windows. Noah's parents were with her, along with two of his groomsmen. She pulled me aside, her voice low but urgent. "Lennon, we need to talk about the trust login. Noah and I are trying to finalize some vendor payments, and we keep hitting walls. Can you just give me access so we can handle this ourselves?" I set down my coffee. "No." Her eyes widened. "What?" "I'm not giving you access. I've already updated the trust guidelines and notified the bank. Going forward, all distributions have to follow the original terms. Education, housing, basic support, nothing else." Noah stepped closer, his smile gone. "That's not how this works. It's her money." "It's not," I said calmly. "It's a trust created from our parents' estate. I'm the trustee. She's a beneficiary. Those are two different things." Riya's voice rose. "You're controlling me. You're treating me like a child. I'm enforcing the rules we agreed to when the trust was set up. Rules that were meant to protect both of us, not fund a lifestyle you can't afford on your own." "What's that supposed to mean?" Noah's jaw tightened. "It means the wedding expenses are frozen. No more withdrawals. No more payments to vendors. If you want to get married, you'll have to pay for it yourselves." The small circle around us went silent. Noah's mother looked like she had swallowed something bitter. One of the groomsmen took a step back. Riya's face flushed. "You can't do this. You're trying to ruin my wedding." "I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm stopping you from using money that was never meant for this." Noah's voice dropped, cold and sharp. "We'll take legal action. We'll challenge your authority as trustee." "You can try." I kept my tone even. "But every withdrawal is documented, every expense categorized. The trust's purpose is clear, and I've been more than generous letting things slide this long. If you want a legal review, we'll get one, and you won't like what it finds." The event coordinator appeared at Noah's elbow, her expression apologetic. "Excuse me, Mr. Carver, but there's an issue with the payment for today's event. The card on file was declined, and the trust account has been locked per updated instructions." All eyes turned to me. "I'll no longer be covering events that have nothing to do with the trust's purpose," I said. "If you want a brunch, pay for it." Riya's voice cracked. "How could you do this to me? How could you ask me to leave your engagement party for ruining the vibe?" I picked up my suit jacket from the back of a chair. "How could you tell people you raised yourself? How could you treat me like an embarrassment while spending money I've been protecting for you since you were 10 years old?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I looked at Noah. "You wanted her independent. Congratulations. She is." I set the closed trust folder on the table between us, a boundary, a statement, a line she could not cross, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Riya call my name, her voice high and desperate, but I did not turn around. I pushed through the ballroom doors into the bright hotel lobby, and the sound of her calling faded behind me. The sunlight through the glass doors was sharp and clean. I stepped outside, took a breath, and kept walking. The next 3 days were quiet in a way I had not experienced in years. No calls from Riya, no texts asking for favors, no sudden requests to pick up groceries or co-sign paperwork or explain some financial form she did not want to read herself. I went to work. I helped my clients. I came home and cooked simple meals and watched old movies without checking my phone every 10 minutes. On the 4th day, Eli called. "Noah's lawyer sent a letter," he said, They're threatening to challenge your trusteeship. On what grounds? Breach of fiduciary duty, alleged misuse of power, the usual nonsense people throw at the wall when they're desperate. He paused. It's not going anywhere. The trust documents are airtight, and you've got a paper trail showing every decision was within your legal authority, but they might drag it out to make noise. Let them, I said. You're sure? I'm sure. Eli sighed. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. I've seen a lot of families destroy themselves over money. You drew a line before it got worse. I thanked him and hung up. That night, Mira stopped by with takeout. We sat on my couch and ate in comfortable silence, and when she finally asked how I was holding up, I told her the truth. I don't regret it. She nodded. Good. You shouldn't. But it still hurts. Of course it does. You spent half your life raising her. You can do the right thing and still grieve what you lost. She set down her container. The question is, what are you going to do now? I thought about that. Live my own life, I guess. Sounds like a plan. The wedding was supposed to happen in 3 weeks. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Riya and Noah were scrambling to cover costs, that some vendors had backed out, that the guest list had been cut in half. I felt a small, cold satisfaction hearing it, and then I felt guilty for feeling satisfied. Nadia, my coworker at the nonprofit, caught me staring at my desk one afternoon and asked if I was okay. I told her the short version: sister, trust, confrontation. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she leaned back in her chair. You know what's wild? She said. The people who drain you the most are always the ones who act like you're the villain for setting boundaries. Yeah. And the people who actually respect you never ask you to prove it. I thought about that for the rest of the day. A week later, Riya texted me. Just one line. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, if you want to apologize, I'm listening. If you want to argue about the trust, talk to my lawyer. She did not respond. 2 days before the wedding, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Lennon? It was Noah. His voice was strained, missing its usual confidence. We need to talk. About what? The trust. We're willing to negotiate. Maybe we can work out a payment plan or... No. You don't even know what I'm going to say. I don't need to. The trust is closed to wedding expenses. That's final. There was a long silence. You're really going to let her wedding fall apart over this? I'm not the one who let it fall apart. You are. You pushed her to see me as an obstacle instead of family. You treated the trust like a credit card with no limit. You made her believe she could have everything without consequences. I kept my voice steady. This is what consequences look like. He hung up. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early and went for a run along the river. The air was cool, the sky clear. I thought about all the years I spent putting Riya first, and I realized that for the first time in a long time, I was not carrying the weight of someone else's choices. I did not go to the wedding. I did not send a card. I did not check social media to see how it turned out. Instead, I spent the day at the park, reading a book I had been meaning to finish for months. Around sunset, Mira texted asking if I wanted company. I said yes, and she showed up with sandwiches and a thermos of coffee. How are you doing? She asked. Better than I expected. She smiled. Good. We sat on a bench under a street lamp as the light faded, and I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got a letter from Noah's lawyer. It was polite but firm, formally withdrawing their challenge to the trust and acknowledging my authority as trustee. There was no apology, no explanation, just a legal retreat dressed up in professional language. Eli called that afternoon. They folded. Why? Probably because they realized they had no case, or maybe because fighting you in court would cost more than the wedding. He paused. Either way, you're clear. I thanked him and filed the letter in the same drawer as the trust documents. Life settled into a new rhythm. I worked, I volunteered, I started going to a gym near my apartment and taking evening walks without checking my phone every 5 minutes. I reconnected with a few old friends I had lost touch with during the years I spent managing Riya's life. Nadia invited me to a work happy hour, and I went. People asked about my sister's wedding, and I said it was nice and changed the subject. No one pushed. One Saturday morning, I was in the grocery store when I saw Noah in the produce section. He was alone, looking tired, comparing prices on bagged salad. He glanced up, saw me, and froze. I nodded once and kept walking. He did not follow. A month later, I got a voicemail from Riya. Her voice was quiet, almost small. Lennon, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say, I'm sorry for how I treated you, for the party, for everything. She paused and I heard her take a shaky breath. You were right, about the money, about Noah, about all of it. I didn't want to see it. The message ended there. No requests, no demands, just an apology. I listened to it 3 times before deleting it. I did not call back. That weekend, I met Mira at the same cafe where I had met Eli months earlier. She asked how I was feeling about everything, and I told her the truth. I'm okay, not great, not terrible, just okay. That's progress, is it? You're not angry anymore. You're not carrying her weight. You're living your own life. She sipped her coffee. That's more than progress. That's freedom. I thought about that word, freedom, and realized she was right. At work, I helped a young father set up a college fund for his daughter. He asked questions about trusts, about protecting money for the future, and I walked him through the options with a clarity I had not had before. When he thanked me, I felt something shift. Not pride exactly, but a sense that the pain I had been through was not wasted. I could use it. I could help others avoid the same mistakes. That night, I sat at my desk and looked at the drawer where I had filed the trust documents and the old photos of Riya. I did not open it. I just sat there, feeling the weight of what I had lost and what I had gained, and I realized they were not the same thing. I had lost a version of my sister that probably never really existed, the grateful, loyal person I thought I was raising. But I had gained something harder to name, self-respect, boundaries, and the knowledge that I did not owe anyone my life just because we shared the same parents. I opened my laptop and started drafting an email to Eli. I wanted to set up a scholarship fund, something small for kids who aged out of foster care and needed help with college expenses. I wanted to use what I had learned, the competence people kept underestimating, to help someone who actually needed it. Eli responded within an hour. Let's talk next week. I think this is a great idea. I closed the laptop and looked around my small apartment, the worn couch, the simple kitchen, the quiet space that was entirely mine. It was not much, but it was enough. For the first time in a long time, enough felt like victory. 6 months later, the scholarship fund was real. Small, but real. Eli and I had structured it carefully, with clear guidelines and oversight, and we had already awarded the first round of grants to 3 students. One of them sent me a thank you note that I kept in my desk drawer, separate from everything else. Work at the nonprofit expanded. I was offered a promotion, not a huge one, but enough to matter. More responsibility, a small raise, a title that actually reflected what I did. I said yes. Nadia and I became closer friends. She invited me to her son's soccer games, and I went. We grabbed coffee after work and talked about normal things, movies, weekend plans, the ridiculousness of office politics. It was easy in a way relationships had not been easy in years. I did not hear from Riya again after the voicemail. No texts, no calls, no attempts to reconnect. Part of me wondered if she and Noah were still together, if the wedding had happened at all, if she was happy or struggling or somewhere in between. But I did not go looking for answers. Mira checked in once a month, always casual, always giving me space to say as much or as little as I wanted. One evening over dinner, she asked if I ever thought about reaching out to Riya. Sometimes, I admitted, and then I remember that I already gave her 20 years. If she wants a relationship now, she knows where to find me. Mira nodded. Fair enough. The trust kept running quietly in the background. I reviewed the statements every month, approved the occasional legitimate expense. Riya had moved to a smaller apartment and was paying her own rent now, and maintained the boundaries I had set. There were no more wedding costs, no more business consulting withdrawals, just the basics the trust was designed for. It was boring, responsible, exactly what it should have been from the start. One Saturday afternoon, I was at the park when I saw Riya. She was alone, sitting on a bench near the playground, watching kids climb on the jungle gym. She looked thinner, older, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. I hesitated, then walked over. Hi, I said. She looked up, startled. Lennon, can I sit? She nodded, and I sat down on the far end of the bench, leaving space between us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. We just watched the kids play, listened to their laughter echo across the park. I'm sorry, she said finally. I know I said it before, but I don't think I really meant it then. Not the way I do now. I did not respond right away. I let the words settle, tested them for weight and sincerity. What changed? I asked. Everything. She laughed, but it was hollow. Noah and I broke up 2 months ago. The wedding happened, barely, but it was a disaster. Half the vendors didn't show up. We fought the whole time. He blamed me for not getting more money from you. She paused. I blamed myself for listening to him in the first place. I'm sorry it didn't work out. Are you? I'm sorry you're hurting. I'm not sorry I set boundaries. She nodded slowly. I deserved that. We sat in silence for another minute. I got a job, she said. A real one. Not just the marketing thing. I'm working at a consulting firm, long hours, real pressure. It's hard, but it's mine. I'm paying my own bills now. No trust money except for rent, and I'm working on changing that too. That's good. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. I just wish I hadn't been so stupid about it. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone I did not quite recognize. Not the child I raised, not the entitled woman who kicked me out of her engagement party. Someone in between, still figuring it out. I don't hate you, I said. I'm just not going to be your safety net anymore. I know. If you want to rebuild something, it has to be different, equal, adult to adult. I understand. I stood up. Take care of yourself, Riya. You too, Lennon. I walked away and did not look back. That night, I thought about forgiveness and whether it required reconciliation. I decided it did not. I could forgive her for being young and selfish and blind without pretending those years did not cost me something. I could wish her well without letting her back into my life as if nothing had happened. It was a kind of freedom I had not known I needed. A year after the confrontation in the ballroom, I stood in Eli's office signing the final paperwork for the scholarship fund's second round of grants. We had expanded it slightly, added a mentorship component, and partnered with a local community college to identify students who needed support. You've done good work here, Eli said, handing me a pen. Your parents would be proud. I signed my name carefully. I hope so. The scholarship fund's first recipient, a girl named Tessa who had aged out of foster care at 18, was now in her second year of nursing school. She emailed me updates occasionally, always grateful, always working harder than anyone I had ever met. She reminded me of myself at that age, determined and alone and carrying too much. I made sure she did not have to carry it all. The trust was stable. Riya's expenses were modest and approved without conflict. She texted me once every few months, usually just updates, new job, new apartment, small victories. I responded politely but briefly. We were not close, and maybe we never would be again, but we were not enemies either. It was enough. That Friday, I went to Nadia's for game night. Her apartment was full of laughter, her son's terrible jokes, her husband's competitive streak over board games. I felt easy there, like I belonged, like I did not have to prove anything or be anyone other than who I was. I thought about the last year, about the sacrifices and the betrayals, about the trust fund and the ballroom and the moment I finally said no. I thought about Riya's face when I walked away and the silence that followed and the slow, painful work of rebuilding a life that was entirely my own. I did not regret any of it, not the confrontation, not the boundaries, not the choice to stop being the person everyone could lean on without consequence. I had spent so long being underestimated, by Riya, by Noah, by everyone who saw my quiet life and assumed I had nothing to offer. But underestimation was just another word for invisibility, and invisibility had given me power, the power to act without warning, the power to change everything in 4 quiet words. The trust is closed. That was all it took. 4 words to turn a wedding into a reckoning. 4 words to force 2 people who thought they could take forever to realize they had to stand on their own. I walked home through the quiet streets, feeling lighter than I had in years. The apartment was dark when I got there. I turned on a single lamp and sat at my desk. I opened my laptop and checked the scholarship fund's balance. We had enough for another round. Tessa sent another email. She had aced her midterms. She thanked me again, said she did not know where she would be without this chance. I replied with congratulations and encouragement, and I meant every word. I thought about Riya one last time. Not the sister I raised, not the woman who humiliated me at her engagement party, but the stranger she had become. I hoped she figured it out. I hoped she learned to carry her own weight. But I was done carrying it for her. I turned off the lamp, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt exactly what I had earned: victory.